Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to study uh, cost of living. So, what does cost of living mean? And mm, in general, how do we measure cost of living? And these questions will be answered at this lesson. So, main questions are, as I mentioned, what does cost of living mean? Second one, uh, how do we measure cost of living? How do we calculate inflation? How do we calculate economic growth, and so on? So measuring cost of living. Uh, this is in our book, chapter 5. Okay, let's go. Second living. Uh, First of all, uh, inflation refers to a situation in which the economy overall price is rising. So when the prices for goods and services rises, we call this situation as a inflation. When it decreases, we call deflation. Now, in what is in general cost of living? Cost of living, when time passes every year, the cost of living increases. So you could buy something for cheaper price in old times, but today for the same money we can't buy that product because pro the price of the product during these years has been increased. So the inflation rate is percentage change in price level from the previous year. So how much percentage uh, the prices for goods and services have changed. To measure cost of living, we use index. One of them, which one is one of them is the CPI, we call Consumer Price Index, a measure of overall cost of the goods and services bought by a typical consumers. We will in the future also discuss this situation. We also, as you remember, calculated inflation with GDP deflator. So what was the formula of GDP deflator? Nominal GDP divided by real GDP multiplied by 100. Here we also talked about inflation. In here we also talked about inflation. So what's the difference between GDP deflators inflation and CPI consumers inflation, you may ask. The difference is that consumer price index only calculates change in prices in the basket, or uh, CPI calculates the percentage change in the price of goods and services which consumers consume. But GDP deflators inflation calculate change in prices of all goods and services which were produced inside the country. But CPI calculates the goods and services, including imported goods as well. This is also important. Now, for example, if the price of, let's say, plane increases, not plane tickets, but plane increases, then plane is not consumer good, but service which they give companies from one place to another place. This is consumers, but plane itself is not consumer good. That's why it's not in our basket. We don't daily consume plane or tanks, for example. Production of tanks is not included to CPI because tanks are not consumer goods. It's just the GDP deflators, general product that are produced inside the country for military services. So, but in CPI, we just calculate change in consumer price index, or only change in prices of consumers that we daily or generally consume. It might be clothes, it might be what car, for example, if you have car, it might be what foods that you daily consume. It might be services like haircut. It might be what our telephone communication needs, transport expenditures, maybe some social activities that we need and that we do in our free times. So all the goods and services that we consume and change in these goods and services is based or calculated by consumer price index, or in short we call CPI. Now, in United States, the CPI is calculated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In our country, in Kyrgyzstan, CPI, Consumer Price Index, is calculated by National Statistical Committee, or NATS.com we call. Every month, they monitor the change in price of goods and services. So, for example, in our country, every month they report for how much goods and they also fix the basket. So they ask people what do you consume every day or typically, usually, and they put these goods and services to the basket, and every month they monitor for how much percent goods and services which is fixed constant in the basket increased or decreased. They monitor and give report to the society, to the people. Okay. Yes, it's also said that it is used to monitor change in the cost of living over time. CPI, Consumer Price Index. When the CPI rises, when the Consumer Price Index rises, the typical family has to spend more dollars to maintain the same standard of living. So when there is an inflation, typical family, typical person, typical society, or what can we say, typical family, as it's mentioned it here, has to spend more dollars to maintain the same standard of living, because when price index increases, or when there is a inflation, purchasing power, people's purchasing power decreases, so they become more poorer when prices for goods and services increase. So they need to spend more dollars. To spend more dollars means they have to work more, or their salaries or wage also should be increased to keep the same or constant standard of living as before. So consumer price index is how it is calculated. So first of all, we fix the basket. So determine what prices are most important to the typical consumer. So as I said, National Statistical Committee in Kyrgyzstan first takes the basket and fixes this basket. How many goods and services? Nearly more than 100, as I know, goods and services are included, including it is all the goods and services that we need. It might be tea, bread, foods, including foods, clothes, social activities, as I mentioned before, uh, all other. It might be rent, for example. It might be the school fee of the family and other expenditures. So they first of all fix the basket, how many goods and services we have to put the basket they decide, and then what do they do? Next one, for example, it says in United States, BLS identifies the market basket of goods and services the typical consumer buys. In our country, as I mentioned, it is done by National Statistical Committee, and in different countries, mostly the consumer price index, or CPI, is calculated by their national statistical what bureau or center, how we can say. So it should be the government owned statistical company or organization that every month officially announces or calculates the change in basket. This is important. Now, the National Statistical Committee conducts monthly consumer surveys to set the weights of the price of goods and services. So every month they ask the people, and they also ask the sellers, and according to this survey, they monitor change in prices for typical buyers, change in goods and services which he buys monthly. So second step is the first. Already we have fixed our basket, and then we decide to find the prices. So find the price of each of the goods and services in the basket for each point of time. So we need to know how many goods and services do you consume. For example, we ask ours in our survey to buyers, and then we find the prices of that goods and services. We ask them how much it is, and then price times quantity gives us how much is the cost of basket in 1 month. Next one, compute the basket's cost. As I mentioned in here, use the data on prices to calculate the cost of basket of goods and services at different times. First of all, we choose a base year, and according to that base year, we compare the prices of today's change in price according to base year. So we in here, as it is mentioned in here, designate 1 year or choose 1 year as a base year, making it benchmark against which other years are compared. So the aim of choosing base year to compare the change in base year, today's year with the base year. Now compute the index by dividing the price of the basket 1 year by the price base year, multiplying by 100. So CPI, I think it is given in here. It is not given. So CPI, or how do we call Consumer Price Index? In short, we call CPI. Okay. CPI, Consumer Price Index, CPI, equals to, as it is mentioned in here, the formula is like this. Price of basket in current year, price of basket in current year divided by price of basket in base year multiplied by 100. So this is our consumer price index, or in short we call CPI. CPI is, as it's mentioned, consumer price index is price of basket. So how do you find price of basket? We multiply quantity consumed with the price of that product to find the, for example, how many goods and services a typical consumer consumes in 1 month. For example, it might be 10 goods. Then we find fix these 10 goods and put to the basket. And then we ask the prices of each product. And when we multiply price of the good and the quantity consumed, we will find the cost of that basket. After finding the cost of that basket, we compare the cost of that basket with the cost of the base year, or the previous year it might be, or 2 years ago it might be. So we compare in which years CPI is fixed. So according to that, we fix our our basket. After that, we find the cost of basket, and then to calculate the CPI, we use consumer price index at current year So basket, the cost of basket of the current year divided by the cost of basket in the base year multiplied by 100. So this is CPI or Consumer Price Index. Now compute the inflation rate. After finding the Consumer Price Index, we calculate change in Consumer Price Index. It's called change in Consumer Price Index is called as a change in CPI is called change in CPI is called as a inflation rate. So this is also important, inflation rate. So let's see the formula in here. How do we calculate inflation rate? Inflation rate in year 2 equals to CPI in year 1 minus CPI in year CPI in year 2 minus CPI in your base year or the previous year divided by CPI in first year multiplied by 100. So we call inflation rate like this. Now let's go on. This is our inflation rate. It's calculated as below. Now assume that we have. So let me close this one. Survey consumers to determine fixed basket of goods and services. We assume that we have 4 hot dogs and 2 hamburgers. 4 hot dogs and 2 hamburgers is we have in our basket. This is just an example. The price of hot dogs is 1, 2, 3 in different years. We will take year 2001 as a base year, and price of hamburgers is also given. It is $2, $3, $4. Now we know the price, and what was the first step? We were consuming the quantity. 4 hot dogs we have and 2 hamburgers we have. This is we fixed our basket and then find the price of the basket we found, and we calculate the cost of basket in each year. So we have 1 per hot dog. So one quantity hot dog, $1 per quantity. So how many hot dogs we consume in our basket? 4 hot dogs we consume. So price of one is how much? It is $1 in 2001. Plus I also consume the hamburger, 2 hamburgers, and price of hamburger is also 2. And then the cost of basket in first year 2001 it is $8, and after 2002 we see that our basket is $14, and after 2003 we see that the cost of basket is $20 in the year 3. So we see in increase to buy the same amount of goods and services, how much money we need to spend. This question is answered by whom? By CPI or Consumer Price Index, or CPI or Consumer Price Index. This is important, ladies and gentlemen. Now, so we see 8, 14, and 20. So we have calculated the cost of basket. What was the next step was to find what? CPI, to find Consumer Price Index. What was the formula of CPI or Consumer Price Index? The cost of basket at current year divided by the cost of basket base year multiplied by 100. First year's basket always should be 100. Okay, the cost of first year always should be 100. What does it mean? The cost of basket current year 8. The cost of basket base year is also 8 multiplied by 100. 8 will cancel this 8 and it will be 100 in 2001. Let's see this situation. I think so. First years it is what? Base years 100. Second year the cost of basket current year 14, as you know, this is 14 divided by 8 is base year, which is 8, and multiplied by 100, multiplied by 100, and this is 175. Next one is $20 divided by base year multiplied by 100. It is 220. So choose 1 year as a base year. In here we choose 2001 as a base year and calculate consumer price index. We have calculated consumer price index for each year. Now, what's the next step? Next step is to find or to calculate what? To calculate the inflation rate. How do we calculate inflation rate? CPI 2 minus CPI 1 divided by CPI 1 multiplied by 100. You know this formula. So CPI 2 175 minus 100 divided by 100 multiplied by 100 is 75%. So inflation is first from 2001 to 2002 is 75%. So prices for consumer goods increased by 75%. Next one is 2003. 250 minus 175 divided by 175 multiplied by 100, it will be so the year from 2002 to 2003, as you know how much it is, 250, 250 minus 175. This is changing from year 2002 to 2003, and we see it is how much? 43%. 43%. We can see. Let's go on. So consumer price index is calculated. Consumer price index and inflation rate. Another example. Base year is 2002. Basket of goods in 2002 was 1,200. The same basket in 2004 is 1,236. How do we find the CPI? CPI, the same basket 2004 CPI equals to consumer price index. Cost of basket at current year divided by cost of basket at base year multiplied by 100. The CPI in here is 103. And if we see price increase by 3%, it is 3% between 2002 and 2004, we can see. So what is the CPI's basket? Mostly the people's expenditure, mostly it is spent for housing, which is 41%. So 41% of the society are spending money for housing. Second one, other goods. Third one, apparel. Next one, what? Recreation. 6% medical care. 6% education. 70% transportation, and mostly food and beverage at 16%. So problems in measuring the cost of living. So CPI is an accurate measure of the selected goods make up in typical bundle, but it is not perfect measure of the cost of living. Why? Because substitution bias we will have introduction of new goods and unmeasured quality change. So what substitution bias? The basket does not change to reflect consumer reaction, but change relative prices. So consumers substitute toward goods that have become relatively less expensive. The index overstates an increase in cost of living by not considering the consumer substitution. So, for example, in our basket, we assume that, or we ask people that, for example, what is it? Let's say pen. This pen is our necessity. That's why it is in the basket. We can say, but what can change in basket? For example, if the price of goods and services increase, price for pen increase, I substitute maybe pencil, but government or national statistical committee, when it is calculating CPI, they will say that I am still buying even it is expensive, but I don't buy because it is quite expensive. So they don't consider substitution bias of the consumers. Next one is, as I have mentioned, this is Introduction of new goods. When new goods are introduced, even it is necessity, for example, telephone is necessity, but it is not included to CPI, then my expenditures are increasing, but they don't consider my expenditures. They just say that the price does not change, for example. So introduction of new goods, what is it? The basket does not reflect the change in purchasing power brought by any introduction of new product. New products result in greater variety, which in turn makes each dollar more valuable. Consumer needed fewer dollars to maintain any given standard of living. This is also very important, ladies and gentlemen. Unmeasured quality change. What is it? Unmeasured quality change. It is changing what quality. For example, the price of one product might be changed because of the what? Because of the quality, but they don't include change in quality as a change in quality. They just say that prices has increased, but actually price didn't increase. Just it has increased. Just we see change in what uh, price. So unmeasured quality change is this one. Unmeasured quality change is this one. So problems in we see. As it mentioned in here, if the quality of the good falls from one year to another year, the value of dollar falls, even the price of goods and services stay the same. So BLS or National Statistical Committee tries to adjust the price for constant quality, but such differences are hard to measure. So substitution bias, introduction of new goods, and unmeasured quality change, and CPI overstate the true cost of living. The issue is important because many government programs use the CPI to adjust for change in the overall price levels. The CPI overstates inflation by about 1%. CPI, Consumer Price Index, overstates inflation by 1 percentage point per year. So GDP deflator, as I have mentioned, nominal GDP divided by real GDP multiplied by 100. This is change in goods of all service in all year. So the index of different regions within a country. Producer price index of PPI, in which measures the cost of basket goods and services bought by firms rather than consumers. It is producer production price index. So economists and policymakers monitor both the GDP deflator and the consumer price index, or in short we call CPI, to gauge the quickly prices are rising. So CPI deflator versus the CPI, consumer price index. So economists and policymakers, both the GDP deflator and consumer price index to gauge how quickly prices are changing. So GDP deflator reflects the price of all goods and services produced domestically, whereas the CPI, Consumer Price Index, reflects the price of all goods and services bought by consumers. There is no restriction in CPI. Consumer Price Index compares the price of basket of goods and services to the price of basket in base year. So only occasionally does the BLS change the basket. Next one, where is the GDP? GDP deflator compares the price of currently produced goods and services to the price and the same goods and services in the base year. So this is also important. We see in here the measurement of the inflation. It is mostly in the United States. We see this is CPI. Second one is GDP deflator. We see that CPI is more dominant than GDP deflator because CPI is bought mostly from the people. Now, correcting the economic variables for the effect of inflation Price indexes are used to correct the effects of inflation when the comparing figure from the. So I want to know how much the salary in 2031 equals to the year salary in 2001, for example. How do you find the price salary at that year multiplied by the price in 2001 or current year multiplied the price level in 31 or base year. So we see in here 80,000 at that year today equals to $931,579. This is how we call correcting.
In the economy, there is a circular flow of money, factors of production, and goods and services. Services are also flowing around. For example, services are also flowing around. In the economy, there is a circular flow of money, factors of production, and goods and services are also flowing around. For example, when Dave works for Mandy's Cakewalk as a cake decorator, let's say, he earns an income that he can spend on goods and services. Well, during the year, Dave spends his income on a wide variety of products and services. When Dave goes to the store, he takes $100 with him, and he buys a regular basket of items that he needs, and let's say he does this throughout the year. Let's say he buys eggs, milk, cereal, bread, a pound of ground beef, celery, and orange juice. But he also buys gas for his car, pays a utility bill, makes a monthly payment for shelter throughout the year. And this year, Dave buys a used car, takes a vacation by airplane, and also goes to the doctor. And all of these expenses are incorporated into the consumer price index each year and measured across the entire economy. Why is this important? Because next year, when Dave goes to the store and spends the same $100, he notices that his $100 does not buy the same amount of stuff. This is because the prices of goods and services tend to go up over time. So Dave's cost of living has increased, not only when he goes to the store, but also when it costs more to fill up his gas tank, and when it costs more to take a vacation. Inflation is one of the most important concepts you can possibly understand in macroeconomics, and it affects each and every one of us. So why do prices rise? Well, one reason is changes in supply and demand. For example, when the demand for products and services increases, then suppliers will tend to raise their prices in response. Likewise, when the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Nations, what we refer to as OPEC, if they decide to reduce the supply of oil, then if nothing else changes, then the price of oil, and therefore gasoline, will rise. Another reason that prices tend to rise is because the supply of money in an economy increases. And this makes the value of each dollar worth less. The effect of a falling dollar is rising prices. So let's take a look at inflation through the eyes of an economist. Inflation is a sustained increase in the average level of prices in the economy. The opposite of inflation is deflation, which is a sustained decrease in the level of prices inside an economy. The inflation rate is the rate at which prices are increasing, usually on an annual basis. The inflation rate is a widely watched report released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In the 1970s, the U.S. experienced a dramatic increase in the rate of inflation that led to a major economic challenge, especially for business owners who encountered extremely high rates on bank loans. Economists measure inflation or changes in the level of prices using a price index. The Consumer Price Index is an index measuring the level of prices in the economy and comparing them to previous years in order to gauge the level of inflation in an economy. The Consumer Price Index reveals to us the capacity of our money to buy goods and services, which we call purchasing power. Purchasing power represents the amount of goods and services that $1 will buy. So when prices go up, that means the purchasing power of money has gone down. So here's an example. An index is a number that starts at 100 in a certain year, which
In general, this is how we call total domestic gross in millions 2001 year release. The most popular movies all times inflation adjusted. Uh, this is in millions of dollars. And here we see Star Wars, Titanic, Commanders, Jaws, Dr. Zhivago, Jungle Book, Snow White, and the Seven Dwarfs. For indexation, when some dollars amount is automatically corrected for inflation by a law or a contract, the amount is said to be indexed for inflation. Interest presents a payment in the future for transfer for fee in the past. Nominal interest rate is the interest rate usually reported and not corrected for inflation. For example, when you put money into the bank, let's say you want to put as a deposit $100, the bank is saying that interest rate is, let's say, 10%. So by the end of the year, when you get your main money, $100 plus, the bank is going to give you extra $10 for saving your money as a deposit in the bank. So this $10 is nominal interest rate, but it does not represent your real interest rate on the other hand. Why? Because, for example, the same year when the bank is giving you $10, extra $10, the interest rates might increase to, let's say, $15, 15%. So which means this 15%, sorry, inflation has increased for 15%. So it means your income increased by 10%, inflation increased by 15%. In this case, what happens? Inflation is just eating your power purchasing. Or if interest rates also increased by 10%, then your real income is zero because change interest rates increased by 20%, and it's the interest rate that banks pay. Yes, the real interest rate is nominal interest rate that is corrected for effects of inflation. So you borrowed 1,000 for 1 year. Nominal interest rate was 15%. So bank is saying that I will pay you 15% in 1 year. And during the year inflation was 10%. Then your income was real interest rate equals to nominal interest rate minus inflation. So it is 5%. Actually, interest rates, if we look to the interest rates in the United States, we see like this nominal interest rates, and second one, it is real interest rate adjusted with inflation, real interest rate. So in summary, what can we say? In summary, we can say CPI, or Consumer Price Index, shows the cost of a basket of goods and services relative to the cost of the same basket in the base year. The index is used to measure the overall level of price in the economy. The percentage change in the CPI measures the inflation rate. The CPI is an imperfect measure of the cost of living for the following reasons, because there are three problems we have. It is substitution bias, introduction of new goods, and unmeasured change in quality. Because of measurement of the problems, the CPI overstates annual inflation by about 1% point. So GDP deflator differs from CPI because it includes goods and services produced rather than goods and services consumed in here. In addition, the CPI uses the fixed basket of goods, while the GDP deflator automatically changes the group of goods and services over time as the consumption of GDP changes. So dollar figures from the different points in time to represent valid comparison of purchasing power. The various laws and private contracts use price indexes to correct for the effect of inflation. The real interest rate equals the nominal interest rate minus the rate of inflation. So this is what we talked about the CPI in here. Now let's look to our book now. Solve some problems. Okay, let's go from our book to chapter 6. I think it's a page. Which page? Let's go to page. Yes, these are the questions which we are going to solve. Here it is, for example. Which do you think has a greater effect on the consumer price index or CPI? 10% increase in the price of chicken or 10% increase in the price of caviar. Why? 10% change in caviar will affect more than change in what caviar, because chicken is daily used product and caviar is luxury good, which is not in the basket. Second one, describe the three problems that the consumer price index is perfect measure of cost of living. So first one is substitution bias. Second one, introduction of new goods. Third one is unmeasured quality change. If the price of Navy submarine rises, is the consumer price of GDP deflated affected more? GDP deflated affected more because submarine is not in the basket, so submarine is not something that consumers daily or typical consume. Over a period of time, the price of candy bar rose from 0.1 to 0.6. Over the same period, consumer price rose from 150 to 100. Adjusted over how much the price of candy bar change. Explain the meaning of uh, nominal interest rate and real interest rate, how it calculated. We know nominal interest rate is the interest rate that banks say, and real interest rate is equals to nominal interest rate minus, what is it? Nominal interest rate minus nominal interest rate minus inflation. Yes, inflation. So the residents of Wikipedia, this is not what we are going to talk. Problem two, let's see. So residents of the Wikipedia spent all of their income on cauliflower, broccoli, and carrots. In 2000, they buy 10 heads of cauliflower for $200 50 bunches of broccoli for $75 and 500 carrots for 50 in 2001 they buy. So in here, if we had somewhere to write, I would like to solve this problem, but possible. Let me try now. Just can we write in here? No, we can. Sorry. There are clever statistics. Can I copy this one? Fortunately, I can't. Yes, here we have all their income on cauliflower, broccoli, and carrots. Now, 2010, 2011. Okay, so what is given? They buy 10 heads of cauliflower. So we have cauliflower, cauliflower. What else do we have? Mm, so let me make an exit file if it is possible. Let me double check it. Wow. Let me then just write down here. Okay, so cauliflower, cauliflower. This is quantity of cauliflower. Cauliflower. This is price. Next one, broccoli. This is quantity of broccoli. And broccoli. Price of broccoli. And what was the next product? Cauliflower, broccoli, and carrot. Carrot, quantity, and carrot. No, it is not in the place is not enough here for us. I think it's better for us to open a new open. Yeah. Schedule. So this is here. 2010, 20, 500, plus 0. In 2010, they buy 100 heads of cow flour. So it is 100 for $200. So price of that $200. 500 bunches of broccoli for 75. 50 bunches of broccoli. Broccoli 50. The price of broccoli is how much? $75. Okay. Bunch of carrot. 500 carrots for 50. 500 carrots for $50. 2011 they were 75 how to 75 for 225. And 225 and 18 virtual 120, 18, 120, 18 bunches of broccoli and 500 carrots, 500, 100 carrot, 100. So what is asked? Calculate price of each vegetable in each year. Calculate the price of each vegetable in each year. Using as a base year calculate CPI for each year. And inflation rate. So price of first of all, this is given. Let me save it. This is what is given. Okay. Let me save again. Let me clean this one. Share document. Yes, this one. Yes, this is what is given. Okay. Calculate the price of each flower. So if 100 cauliflower is 75, so let me write down. Cauliflower that calculate if sorry, oh, if they bought 100 cauliflowers for 200 $200, then one cauliflower will cost how much? 100 x equals to 200, x equals to 200 over 100, so it is 2 over 1, it is $2 per cauliflower. What about broccoli? They bought 50 broccoli for 75 dollars. How much will be one broccoli then? It is, we don't know. X, so 50 x equals to 75, x equals to 75 over 50, 75 over 50. If we calculate, it's going to be 75 over 50, it will be 1.5. $1.5 is broccoli. What about carrot? Quantity of carrot is 500. If they buy 500 carrots for $50, then one carrot will be how much? So 50, 500 x equals to 50, x equals to 50 over 500, which equals to 5 over 50, which equals to 5 over 50 equals to 0.1. $0.1. now, what is the question is asking? First, it is asking to calculate the CPI of each year. Okay, to find CPI, what was the formula? CPI equals to cost of basket current year divided by cost of basket base year multiplied by 100. Okay, so let's find cost of basket. 100 times 200, 100 times 200, it is 20,000. 20,000 plus 75 times 500. Sorry, yes, 50 times 75. 50 times 75. 3,750 plus 50 times 2 times 500, which equals to 25,000. 25,000. 25,000 plus 3,750 plus 20,000 equals to 48,000. $48,750, the CPI of the first year. What about second year? Second year equals to 75 times 225, 16,000, 16,875 plus 80 times 120, 9,600, and 500 times 100, 50,000. 50,000, so this is 50,000 plus 9,600 plus 16,875, so 76,000. 76,475. The cost of second year is 48,750. How to find CPI cost of basket current year divided by CPI cost of basket base year multiplied. So first year it will be CPI with 100. Second one, if it is base year, then cost of basket base year, so 76,475. This is current year divided by base year 48,750. Current year base year 1.5 multiplied by 100. So this is 156. 156. So first year it was CPI 100. Next one 156. Then we can say that inflation increased by 56%. How do we calculate inflation rate? 156 CPI 2, 156 CPI 1 minus 100 divided by CPI 1 100 multiplied by 100. So this is going to be 56%. So inflation rate is 56%. So we have finished chapter 6, cost of living. Next week we will start from aggregate demand. I will see you next week. Goodbye.